Hey everybody, welcome to Teamfight Talkshow. I am DoA. With me as always is Frodan, and today we have a special guest. It is none other than the one, the only Bertasaurus. How's it going, man?
It's going all right. About just chilling. I mean, obviously knocked out of the tournament, but you know, it's whatever happens. So yeah.
It's the pro player life. You win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
Hey, day two is better than day one, but we're glad to have you here. We know you have a ton of insight. You had a pretty amazing day one. You did end day two on a first. Don't call it a high roll. I know you will, but you know, it is what it is. But we're happy to have you here. Frodan, though, how are you doing? How's your few days been since we were on the tournament broadcast together?
Doing well, man. Doing well. You know, TFT I think has really started picking up. There's just like content and tournaments and things to look forward to. I think for a while, especially when set 4 came out, it felt like there was nothing really to look forward to outside of like the qualifiers that happen once a month. And now it's like every week there's something and you can watch out of region, and we're, you know, on the way to the world championship. So I'm really excited to break things down, and it's cool because I think you know, Bert is a good guest for good and maybe not so good reasons. So I'm excited to have him today.
Yeah, I mean, the TFT stocks are rising for sure. But here's what we're going to do first. We're going to get to know our guest a little bit better. So Bertasaurus, obviously, you've been making waves in the tournament scene. You know, people know you from the ladder as well. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How'd you get into TFT in the first place? How'd you become a competitive gamer?
Yeah, well, so TFT came out in summer, right after I finished high school. So like I mean, that's like one of the summers where you have like the least to do, like the least obligations. And so TFT came out, and so I just started playing, and it was pretty fun. I think I hit Challenger in set 1, but then I kind of stopped playing and decayed like down to Master 0 LP and Diamond. So I ended Diamond, but when set 2 came out, I don't know, I just really liked playing summoners. So like my friends got me back into the game. I played casually with them, and then I mean, I naturally started climbing again when I played ranked. And then at some point I became a Blunder one trick. But anyway, I actually found set 2, yeah, I actually found set 2 to be really, really fun. I know a lot of people thought like set 2 was boring, but I think I played a lot in set 2, and then like there are different metas that I liked. I think I just like summoners in general, and a lot of like the comps like Azir, Sivir and friends, and then some Sins were just fun to play. So yeah, that's where I got into it. And then yeah, set 3 I kind of played. I mean, I didn't really play the first half of set 3, but 3.5 I ended up getting into more as well. just because I had more free time. But yeah, it's basically just been when I've had free time and like I enjoyed playing the game, I just naturally played a lot. And it just happened that I ended up climbing to high ranks. And when you end up climbing to high ranks, you try to push higher. So like if
Right.
you play for fun and you end up hitting masters just because you're having fun playing the game, even if the game starts getting a little bit repetitive for you, you'll like be like, okay, maybe I can hit challenger, and then you go for it. So yeah, that's basically been how I got into TFT.
So you just happen to be naturally good at it and decided to take it one step further.
I
Sorry,
mean, I
Frodan,
just
go ahead. Yeah.
I just play a lot. I don't think I was like particularly naturally good at the game. I just played a lot.
Okay. Sure.
Do you come from a League of Legends background or other similar genre of like, strategy games or games of variants like this?
I mean, I've played League for a while, but I've never been good at League. Like I barely hit Diamond like 2 seasons ago, and then I've just been like, plat for most of like recent years. I played Hearthstone a lot as well, but I kind of stopped playing that. I was like, I hit Legend rank in Hearthstone as well, but like a lot of people hit Legend, so yeah. But yeah, so not really. I kind of just most of the games I played are just casual and for fun, and I never really imagined myself getting into like competitive or anything when playing games. It's just something to do in my free time for fun.
So
Cool.
you've had your sort of taste of tournaments now, obviously, and you've experienced kind of both of things. You've had very good results, and you've had kind of disappointing results lately. So
Yeah.
after kind of experiencing both ends of the spectrum, there, how do you feel about your competitive future? Do you feel more inclined to compete? Are you fired up, or do you feel kind of bummed? Like where are you at right now?
I mean, I actually don't feel like that bummed. I think I felt really bummed the first qualifier where I was like going into the tournament rank 1 and I got out the second day. Um, I don't know. That felt I was really bummed there, but like after the first one, you kind of get used to it. You just understand that there are low roll days, and like so last I definitely if I played better, I definitely could have made it to the next day. But it's a combination of me low rolling and me making mistakes and me not playing well. That I didn't make it, and so like at the end of the day, it is I am bummed out about it, but it's like I'm not really like beating myself up too much about it.
That's good.
Just because I guess I'm a little bit more used to it, or like just kind of understand that's how it goes eventually.
You're becoming a grizzled veteran of the competitive scene at this point.
Yeah.
Win losses, whatever. It's all forward trajectory.
Yeah, sure. Something like
Yeah.
that.
I think it's important to get that because there's a lot of times when players they get they get too emotional. I think it affects their gameplay, right? And they like start to feel pressure. They're like, oh, I just can't get eighth, so I should just like do this unconventional thing. And then some player like because of that they end up playing a lot worse. I think this happened to a player in the qualifier Flightsy or the regionals. Flightsy
Mhm.
qualified for the for the regional finals and was messaging me like an hour before, and he was like, because I queued up a game on
Mhm.
ladder right before the event started just to get my brain in TFT mode, and he was in my game, and he messaged me after. He's like, oh, I'm like a GM player that all the challenger players are gonna make fun of. What should I do? I'm so scared. I don't want to go 32nd. And I was like, hey, the most important thing to focus on is like, don't worry about like first or second, like just don't get eighth, right? People who advance from day 1 to day 2 generally just don't get eighth places.
Yeah.
And then he proceeded to go eighth, seventh, seventh. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh no. I think I got into his head a little bit of like sharing like what he shouldn't do. And I feel responsible for that. But I think people who are new to that tournament experience do tend to, second guess themselves a lot. The
Yeah.
more you're desensitized to it, I think the better you end up doing long term.
Yeah. I mean, I think tournament experience it definitely can make you nervous, and it doesn't feel like it affects your gameplay, but anytime your mental state isn't like right there, you miss a lot of small stuff, and that small stuff adds up. Like you die with
Mhm.
negative 2 HP into 5th place instead of going first and qualifying for the 3rd day. And that's just like literally you weren't positioning on stage 2 or stage 3 because you or like you made one small error in itemization, and now your itemization slightly suboptimal, something like that. Like there's a lot of small stuff and it adds up, and some games it doesn't matter, but some games it matters a lot.
Yeah. Well said.
I think what we learned more than anything too is that while many casters curse players through like general statements like I think they're going to do really well or something, Frodan's taken it to the next level. he is personally cursing people now with pre-tournament advice. So I would just like to say congratulations, Frodan, for elevating the idea of the caster curse to the next level. You've really taken it to the next spot.
Thank you. It's been years in the making. I didn't ask for these powers, but I recognize that I have a gift and I have to use it wisely.
Absolutely, credit where credit is due. Well, let's move on and talk about the meta a little bit. So we're in 11.5, obviously, and I think the coolest thing about this meta is that it's still very much evolving. We can see the buffs and nerfs in a general sense that happened there. Obviously, keepers were nerfed, and yet keepers still feel like they're kind of on the rise, especially day 2 in the tournament. But Bertasaurus, right off the bat, I want to get your sort of like general take on the meta, both in terms of what you were seeing preparing for the tournament, and then between day 1 and day 2, those changes. What's sort of your general state of the meta right now with everything that's been happening? Because I feel like it's been changing rapidly.
Yeah, I think so first of all, it depends on the lobby even, because I think like some games feel like really high tempo, and like the NA qualifiers 2 weekends ago, they felt like really high tempo where you couldn't even get to play Slayers. And today, or not today, like this weekend, some lobbies, like people were able to like get to their 4-cost carries, and lobbies felt slower tempo. It really feels like you need to like read the lobby and how it's going. So that matters, because like if you're playing around 3-cost units or stuff like that, then if a lot of the meta revolves around it, then stage 2, stage 3, if you're trying to like play for a 4-cost carry, you're gonna bleed out a lot more if you're not like making a comp. Also, I saw a lot of Tristana Chosens with Morellos, so I think the Morello buff actually like made a big difference, because it's a better early game item, better late game item, which makes it a lot more slammable. And then like if you find users for it early, then it's really strong. In terms of comps, I think like everything is playable, pretty much, and it's really nice. And it's just like you play what you hit, you try to play what you hit, and then like play around those units, and then just save HP with them, or like that's how I would approach the game. And with everything playable, you just kind of want to keep your options open. So like for example, you hit like if you hit like a Tristana Chosen and Slam Morellos, you can get into a 4-cost comp. But if you have like a weaker early game, and then let's say you hit like a cannon or a keeper chosen, then you can maybe get in keepers. Or like I personally like to play Shyvana and Sivir a lot. So yeah, I think it really just the metas. It feels like solo queue is like dominated by 4-cost carries, but when you get into a tournament, the meta like revolves a lot around 3-cost units. Just like playing around, like if you can get if you can play like higher tempo than everybody, like basically get your comp online earlier, then usually you're gonna in a pretty good spot. So
can you talk a little bit more about your specific style that you were kind of talking about, how you play Chosens and then you would sell them pretty aggressively? Just like, what goes into your mindset? Because I think that's like one of the biggest debates. That's actually probably one of the most frequent questions that people get, right? Like when they're streaming or they're competing, like, do I pick up the show? Do I pass it? Do I sell it later on after I rent it?
Yeah, it depends on the Chosen, and obviously, I mean, it's kind of cop-out answer, but it's situational. But I think the point is that I'm pretty sure I'm not like doing this optimally as well. But the general idea behind what you try to do is like, let's say you have a Chosen on stage 2, you pick it up early. Let's say it's a Maokai Chosen, Elderwood Maokai Chosen or whatever. You pick it up, and you just think about your stage 3. And if you have this Chosen on stage 3, like what's it going to do for you? And a lot of times for a lot of 1-cost Chosens, the answer is like nothing. Like Tristana can be good on stage 3. Some Chosens can be good on stage 3. But there are a lot of Chosens that just, it feels like I'm going to bleed out on stage 3. And that usually puts you in a bad spot, because you have to 4-1 roll down. And I think 4-1 roll down is one of the, it's one of the spots that people find themselves like having to roll down the most often, but it's also one of the worst spots to roll down, because it's, you aren't very flexible with items. So you can't really play around 3-cost carries, but at the same time, you kind of have to, if you don't hit a 4-cost Chosen, which is very common, then like it's like you kind of have to take a 3-cost or like 2-cost Chosen, and then also just don't hit 4-cost in general. So basically, if you sell your Chosen, you give yourself like the I think it changes a lot with the increased like natural chosen odds. You give yourself a very good chance to like get a really good mid game chosen. So for example, like Janna chosen with the right setup can be like obviously really good. A lot of the 2-cost chosens with the right setup. So I remember one game I won during the 2 weekends ago NA regional qualifiers finals. Like it was literally just I got a Shyvana off carousel, natural to Janna chosen, and I was win streaking the entire mid game. And like if you selling your early chosen opens you up to opportunities like that.
Right.
Yeah. I also don't mind losing rounds on stage 2. Like if you can go, as long as you're streaking on stage 2, your eco's not screwed, and the HP is like, unless you're like full opening, the HP isn't that much of a difference. Like you're 80 HP when you could be 90 HP. It's not that big of a deal.
For sure. Do you have any commentary for the complete open four? I think a lot of people are really focused on Bebe because he's rank 1
Yeah.
global right now. He's almost at 2K LP, and he like open forts a huge percentage of his games, like full on sell everything, take 4-0, 5-0 losses, and then rolls even at like 2-7 or 3-5 in some extreme scenarios where it's like goes fast 7 and then tries to roll. Like, do you have any commentary on that kind of play style?
I think it's a pretty solid play style. So what I will say is that like a lot of times, so on 3-2, when people try to play for their early game and they go like, let's say loss, win, or even loss, win, loss on stage 2, which isn't that bad. Like it's pretty expected, pretty common. You screw up you actually like can put yourself in a spot where it just feels like you can't do anything. And so the way I see it is that every game you can open forward, and every game you can put yourself in a spot where like if you're flexible on 3-2 and with itemization and everything, you should be able to top 4. And so I think like when you open 4, you don't put yourself in like the spot where you can like high roll, get like a 5 streak stage 2 or something like that. Or like high rolls in certain situations. You don't put yourself in that spot, but at the very least, like you're in a spot where you have options and you can do something. So I usually try to play out my stage 2 a little bit differently, but like I try to make it so it's never worse than like the worst case. I'm not ever in like a worst case scenario where you're like 3-2, bad chosen, 20 gold. You can't play the game,
even level
basically.
6.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. It's like you're just bleeding out. You don't have gold. You don't have good items. It's like
Yeah.
So yeah,
I feel like you could do. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say I think overall I think Bebe's style is pretty consistent, and I'm not surprised he's rank 1 global with it. But I think there are definitely I think there are definitely situations where you can like play for a little bit for your early game and do better than open forming.
Totally right. I feel like we could do a whole show on like how to take care of your gold early game. Do you open forward? Do you not open forward? That could be like another 2 hours of podcast conversation for sure. But I think we need to move on. According to my list over here, we only have a certain amount of minutes for every topic. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about what? Actually, let's go to a fun segment called Agree with a question mark at the end. And these are where we have some spicy questions we're going to talk about. Do we agree or disagree? Our first one is 90% of TFT's early pros won't be able to keep up with the newer pros. So, agree or disagree, Bertasaurus?
I would disagree. I think like most of the early pros have been keeping up so far, and I don't really see that changing. And like a lot of the pros that like aren't quote unquote keeping up, it's not really because they're not keeping up, it's because they're not really playing as much, like Milk and like Saint as examples. So yeah, I disagree.
Okay. Interesting. Frodan, what do you say?
They don't play. I don't feel like they're gonna keep up.
Okay, yeah, if that's what you mean, yeah, if that's what you mean, then
okay.
Keep up means being competitive.
You don't understand. Okay, I
level.
wake up in the morning, I check the markets, and if they go up, I message Milk. If they go down, I also message Milk and see how he's doing. I ask him, "Are you winning, son?" To which he would say yes, no, and we kind of meme around a little bit. And then I queue up a game, and I see a mold digger or mold diver, excuse me, and it says delicious milk GG. I'm like, wait, I'm like Masters, man. And I look over that board. It's like Milk is Masters, and he's playing. And he messages me. He's like, yo, is that you? And so I think like at this point, when I'm looking at it, if they're kind of stuck in Masters right now, I don't think they're going to be able to keep up. But Bert's completely right. It's not that they lack skill; it's that they lack the time in currently. It's more like they lack motivation. I think. Ultimately, you know, we can talk a little bit about the state of Riot Esports, but or rather TFT Esports. It's on the upswing, but it has a lot to be desired to incentivize players to stay engaged because, you know, if the current pace continues, players are just gonna not play for 6 months, maybe try for one tournament, qualify, and then say they didn't practice very much, and then leave again for another 6 months and rinse and repeat. So I really hope that that's not the
NA
case.
way, man.
So I'm actually going to take a controversial stance and say, at the current pace of how people's motivation are waning, I'm going to say yes, because we already see it happening, right? Like Nubal, Bert, Spencer, Goobums, Setsuko, like these kinds of guys, you didn't even hear their names a few months ago. That's because Socks and Soju and Milk are leaving #1 open, right? They used to hold #1 and #2 all the time. If you leave it open, someone's going to take it. So you got to protect the crown.
Well, I'm just gonna say easy agree for me. And my stance on this doesn't even relate to any of the current pros in TFT or any pros in TFT at all. My stance is purely from a historical perspective. I've been observing esports for over a decade now, and I know there's people that have been doing it longer, but 10 years is a lot of time. And what I've noticed is that every single game, right from the first one, StarCraft 2, into League of Legends early on in Korea, into Hearthstone, Overwatch, every single esport I've seen, there's always this big turnover right at about the 2-year mark, where a lot of the initial best pros that wrote the book on how to play certain parts of the game just can't keep up. And there's a number of different reasons. One is motivation, for sure. One is that they might have been good enough to figure out the fundamentals of the game before everyone else figures it out. And let's be honest, in the first few years of an esport, all you need are proper fundamentals to do well, to be a top pro. Because someone needs to invent those fundamentals, right? And if you get to a point where someone starts going beyond those fundamentals and you're still stuck on the stuff that you've invented, you're going to start falling behind. So I think it's inevitable that we're going to see, some of the original pros stick around for a while. I think there's a couple that I don't want to name names, but I think there's a couple that could stick around. But I do think the vast majority will drop off purely based on those historical reasons that I've said. Maybe TFT will be the exception to the rule. I don't think it's going to be.
Yes. Or maybe TFT can ride off into the sunset with Becca, Hafu, Toast, and Scar still the highest earners in history. We'll never know.
The OG, the originals.
The OGs, yeah.
The true
Let's
OG
go on to our second question here. Most top TFT players aren't good at tournament prep. Agree?
Most. I actually probably agree. Or I don't know how you would define top. If you're talking about like top ladder players, I do think that usually the top ladder players end up going into tournaments and doing the best because they're just generally that good, generally like really good. But in terms of tournament prep, I don't think that ladder and tournament are the same, and I do think a lot of ladder players go into tournament like kind of playing the same game. And so yeah, I don't think I don't think the tournament prep is like even something in general. I don't think actually anybody is that good at tournament prep. So yeah, I'm gonna go with agree. Yeah.
All right.
I like that answer.
Okay. All right. I want to dive into that further, but I don't know if go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I mean, that's my entire belief as well, that I think that tournament prep is something that we're just beginning to understand. And so like no one's good at it simply because we haven't figured out what is correct. Like for one thing, it's not correct if you are trying to play a game where 1 to 2% edges repeatedly give you a large advantage over the course of 30 to 40 minutes. And you're streaming and telling everybody about what you think is good to do. Like DQA is hosting in-houses with like Chess Mage and Goobums and all these other great players, and he's streaming it like the day before the tournament. I'm like, why are you streaming?
I love watching it, but that blew my mind, man.
Free information. Now I get it. His stream is popping off, and he's doing great. I watch DQA every single time he's on while I'm doing work. It's great content for me, but it's like you're giving away like what your edge is. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit too harsh on it because obviously
you're right.
sustainable to be just a TFT pro. You have to be a TFT content creator. So he's doing a great job of it. But like, that's the kind of stuff where I feel like we're just learning about what tournament prep is. And as a result, we're giving away the advantage that you would have being a higher skill player.
Yeah.
So that's an agree, right?
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah,
agree from Frodan. For me, easy agree as well. For the reasons that were said, I don't think people have put a lot of effort into tournament prep. I think there is that thing where it's like TFT right now is still very much a streamer centric game from top to bottom. The personalities are there. The way we run tournaments are streamer centric because by necessity, right? So it does make prep very difficult. Because you can't hide anything, and you certainly can't hide anything if you're openly showing everything multiple players in the tournament are doing intentionally, and everybody is okay with that. It blows my mind when I think back to the other esports I've been a part of, and like you even like breathe a whiff of what like someone might be planning, right? If a caster who's not me, because I've never been a leak boy, but if someone else has, then they just get like destroyed by the scene, right? So it's like, hey, let's just do our tournament prep on stream. Does a third of the tournament want to join us? And I loved watching it. But it blew my mind. And I've talked to other pros. The one that comes to mind for me is Crowan, who really put a lot of very cerebral thought into tournament prep. And although obviously Crowan's moved on from competing in TFT, I think he really was one of the best ones early on in terms of really studying all of his opponents, looking at all their styles, thinking about how he could play in a way that would be good into this lobby, and we're going to see more of that over time. And as things start to shift away from everything being on stream all the time, I think, which, with things like spectator mode coming eventually and all that, like we don't need to rely on streams as much. So that shift is going to happen. I didn't want to bring, it's like saying that is like saying the Voldemort. It's like the Voldemort of TFT. You just want to bring it up, but I have to in this case for just a moment, because as we move away from everything being streamed, there's going to be more secret prep, and we're going to see more secret strats come out. Right now, maybe like Aegon is the only one that's coming in with something that like no people expected, right? But for this question, I'm going to definitely agree. I think players aren't good yet, but they will be someday.
Yes, soon. I think people are actually starting to take it pretty seriously, which is good.
Yeah, I agree. Let's take a look at our third question and see who agrees with this. Team tournaments are more interesting than singles tournaments. Bertasaurus?
Yeah, I would agree, because I think with the team tournaments, like it's basically just singles tournaments, except you have different interactions that people can do, and it's more interesting in the aspect that like there's a lot of things that you can do and like think about, like in terms of positioning and stuff, that don't actually that doesn't come up at all when you play ladder or solo queue. And so there's like so many new aspects of the game to explore in team tournaments, as opposed to singles tournaments, where it's like, you get used to the tournament meta and like how other people are playing, but it's really just, good old TFT, basically ladder, except, the meta is a little bit, it's like tournament, so the meta is a little bit different. But yeah, like I definitely think that, you can like, try to punish people if they're playing certain ways. I think like even like you have some games where like everybody just like the lobbies like feels so weak on stage 3 because nobody's spending any gold. And then like if you're the only one like trying to roll on stage 3, it's like, well, I'm just getting outscaled and these people aren't getting punished for not having strong boards. But with team tournaments, you can even like it's not something that people have been doing because we haven't really like had team tournaments that much. But it's like you can try to push the tempo of the lobby. I would imagine that you'd be able to even try to push the tempo of the lobby. Because 4 players, if they're all playing hyper aggressive, then the other players are going to get punished really hard. So I do think there's a lot to explore. There's a lot of new stuff, and there might even be stuff that's like even more deep in terms of strategy with team tournaments.
All right, Frodan, what do you think?
I very much agree, but I think that it won't ever be more interesting unless it's actually directly supported. Like if Riot gives us a team mode to play. I think that if team mode exists, you shouldn't play your teammate like ever. It doesn't make sense, right? Instead, you should like constantly be facing someone from another team. I think duos might have the potential to be more interesting than 4v4, but I'm sure both formats are possible. Part of the reason why are 2 things. One, in a singles tournament, it's really difficult to keep track of 8 different storylines. But it's much easier to keep track of 4, and it's very easy to keep track of 2. So just by the natural like progression of things, it's a lot simpler. And right now, again, because we don't have any kind of tools to understand what team tournaments look like, it's hard for a viewer to watch at the moment. So currently, I think team tournaments aren't that interesting than single tournaments just in the vacuum, but it totally can be much more. And the second thing is that I love social, that the social engagement of TFT is so fun. Like, remember in PBE when they took away the mini map and you couldn't ping anymore and you couldn't do anything? Like, that was so boring. It's like you took out the soul of TFT in a way, right? Like when someone hits like a 3-1 2-star like Olaf or something like absurd. It's like you want to have these crazy moments where everyone can kind of engage, and team tournaments capitalize on that because you naturally get a lot of interaction. You can hear the comms. The duos tournament that Raditz and Esports Law ran, where you just heard like the duos arguing nonstop and flaming each other or working together, was super fun. That kind of like social connection and you can listen to their behavior and comms is really cool, and I love that aspect of it. And it's worked really well in other games like Hearthstone and Magic. It can work really well in TFT.
All right. I agree with all of that, and yet I'm going to disagree with this. I agree. Like, all right. Our producer's a little bit ahead of me there. Okay, but yeah, it's a disagree. And this I have to clarify because I do enjoy team tournaments, and I think the social stuff is really fun. I do agree that once it is supported in game or in a way where we can see who's on what team, because I think right now for a viewer it's extremely confusing to watch a team game because there's no way to designate on screen who is together on a team. I think that makes it very difficult to run right now. But for me, at the end of the day, I just love individual competition. And I came into esports with StarCraft. I love it when it's all on one person, is all on you to either succeed or fail. You have no teammates to blame. It's 100% you, you and Mort Dog. But we'll leave Mort Dog out of this for this one, right? But I just love individual competition in esports. And so for me, the individual tournaments are always going to be more interesting. I think team tournaments have a great future as a great entertainment thing for TFT and a skillful entertainment one too. But at the end of the day, I love individual competition. So I'm going to have to disagree with this one purely on personal reasons. Yeah,
fair.
That's it.
I think a lot of people agree with you, though.
Yeah.
I would hope so. Well, on that note, that is our segment called Agree. I always enjoy that one. That one's really
I
fun.
like this segment a lot. I think
Me too. And it was Frodan's idea too. So we have to give him credit for it. It was a great idea for a segment. Well, let's move on to our esports news segment. And this one's going to be a little bit longer than before because we have a lot to talk about esports wise. Obviously, with its qualifiers, there's the first week of the NA finals. So man, where do we even start? Bertasaurus, we've already talked with you a little bit about your recent tournament experiences and kind of how those have gone for you. But let's just talk about the tournament meta specifically, and more specifically the differences in compositions we saw between day 1 and day 2 of the qualifier, the NA regionals. What's your take on that? Because I feel like we did see a pretty big shift.
Yeah, for I wasn't actually following the meta that closely for regionals. For like the meta between regionals, I was just kind of like playing whatever. I do think that like the second day though, it might have just been my lobbies. The meta felt a little bit slower, like more people going for 4 cross carries, which I don't think was actually for any particular reason. It just happened that my lobbies turned out that way. But in terms of like meta, the main thing I noticed was like people trying to play like mages more often. So like Acel and mage rerolls, like going for Annie 3 and stuff. That's what I saw more often on the second day, and I think I guess that was mainly because I mean this happens like whenever there's a comp, like whether or not the comp's good, like if people just aren't playing it, and especially if like the top streamers aren't playing it, then like people just don't end up picking up the comp in general. And so like even if the comp is good and on par, it maybe takes a while for people to realize it. So I think that might have been what happened with like mages and like the Acel comps and stuff. So it's just like people realizing that they're good, or like, maybe preparing them secretly for tournament. But yeah, I didn't actually notice that big of a change from day 1 to day 2.
Okay.
Do you don't scout the other lobby? Like, do you look at other people's lobbies like after day 1 and feel like, okay, this is doing well, maybe I should start playing this instead?
No, I really should, but I don't. And the main reason I do that is because I mean, I guess my game plan going into the tournament was to just play for top 4s and try to like play for 3 cost carries that like are less risky. and that's also partly because that was like I'm not actually that good at Slayers or like KL comp. Like I would consider myself like not that great at those comps because I don't play them that often, and I don't really know how to best transition into them in terms of early itemization. But yeah, so my game plan coming in was basically just like play around the 3-cost carries I hit, and then try to top 4 that way. And yeah, if I end up in a spot where I can play Slayers, I'll play Slayers. But that's not the game plan, and so I didn't really like look at other lobbies or metas to develop a game plan because my game plan wasn't really dependent on what other people were playing.
Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah. And
Were
it
you
is tough.
starting? Sorry, I just wanted to ask more
That's
tournament
fine.
specific stuff. Were you like trying to start a specific item? I know that like a lot of players go into it. They even discuss with other players like, "What are you starting?" So I like maybe can start crafting a plan. Like, okay, if I'm in the same lobby, I'm gonna start like bow instead of sword, or like glove instead of rod, whatever.
Yeah, I started bow. I always start bow. I tried starting other items, but I didn't really like them as much. And I knew that not a lot of people liked bow, so I was actually surprised when I was even getting contested like one way to bow in some of my lobbies, and I didn't get my bow in like quite a few of my lobbies, which is like my bad on carousel mechanics. But I start bow, and the reason I like starting bow is because it's a bow is core item on a lot of 3-cost carries. So Shyvana must have Runeans or else you can't play Shyvana. Sivir must have Last Whisper or else you can't play Sivir. I even play Zed and Akali sometimes. They both need RFC or else you cannot play them. And then also Callista, I didn't really like play Callista at all. And the one game I did, I didn't hit a duelist chosen, so I went 8th. But I think Callista is actually like a pretty decent unit as well. So like, but you need RFC and Runeans for her to work. So like there's so many. I feel like if you start bow, there's a lot more options, and that you can get online early. So like you can have the core item after the second carousel, and then you can already start playing around a 3-cost unit, even if you only have one of them. So yeah.
Right before this episode started, I was queuing up a game and I had Callista 2 already, and I hit Chosen Callista, and Bert's like, "Oh, you should go Callista 3 because Bert loves his 3-cost carries." And he was like, "Yeah, you can go to 9 and you can just like kind of play good stuff from there." And I was like, "That makes sense." And I was like first place with 92 HP. Next person's like 50 HP and below. I fast 9 and I just lost 6 straight and I died. So.
Yeah, I mean that'll happen.
To be fair, he said that you need RFC.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll happen when you play 3-cost carries, and sometimes it's just kind of how it goes. Like, and you definitely take top 4s for sure. Because like if you hit that'll happen because like you hit your 3-cost carry early enough, like earlier than other people have comps online. People are like playing a Tristana carry, and if you have a 3-cost carry versus Tristana carry, I mean Tristana's actually kind of broken with Morello's, but so actually maybe you still lose to that. But the idea is that you should like you usually beat other people and kind of snowball ahead. And so you can either try to 3-cost your carry or go 9 and just play good units. And honestly, like if you're just playing like Aatrox, Sedge, Lee Sin or like units like those, as long as you have like a DPS source, it's like good.
Yeah.
All right.
Makes sense. That's why we need good 4-cost ranged AD carries. Thank you, Riot.
Yeah.
I'm off my soapbox.
Jin, where are you? Jin and Ash. Oh, well,
Jin and
forget
Ash.
about them.
Cool.
They're gone. Well, let's take a look at some of the scoreboards from day 1 and day 2. Here is day 1, of course. And we talked a little bit earlier about, veteran players perhaps struggling a little bit as newer players kind of come up. What do you see yourself as? Do you see yourself as a newer player? You've played since set 1, but your success has been a little bit more recent than some of these other players. So what camp do you find yourself in? I'm curious what you consider yourself actually with that.
I would not consider myself a recent player. I think I've actually like been playing for a while. Just people don't know my name because I haven't been streaming, haven't been that highly ranked.
Yeah.
But I'm actually not that new to the game. But I knew it's like Nubel started like set 3 or something. Like Nubel and Goobum started like set 3, or
Ram
like
started pretty late too, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I would consider them to be new players, but I don't.
So you're on team OG then.
I mean, I wouldn't consider myself like that much of an OG because I didn't actually play that much set 1 after a while. But I wouldn't consider myself a new player. I just like kind of in the middle,
The big question that I want to know is who on earth is Otter Bear?
Some beast, I guess.
I don't know who Otter Bear is. Like, it was the first time I had heard of them before they qualified, and they just keep on moving on, and we don't really get to see their POV. And clearly they're doing better than Soju and Grand Vice and Zetsuko and Flightsy.
Yeah.
Who's Otter Bear?
I am not entirely sure, and we will see. Maybe Otter Bear is NA's hope when well.
Maybe.
But yeah, I actually don't really know that much about him either, so I'm just as mystified.
I chatted with him a tiny bit today. He was in my Twitch chat and he gave me a couple pointers and things, and we we know now that it's pretty good luck to go into one of the casters' Twitch chats and say hi and help them out a little bit before the tournament. It's like this ephemeral sort of magical thing that kind of happens. But yeah, but I don't know. We need to learn more about Otter Bear for sure. But let's take a look at day 2's results. Sorry, this one is maybe a little bit more painful, but
No.
continuing kind of the theme with that, I feel like we see a mix of OGs going out and new players coming up. Some, OGs obviously sticking around, Solus, Aegon, there's a ton of names on that list that are still around, but we do have a good amount of new players there. The Jirachi is on there, Otter Bear, of course, New Ball again. Otter Bear.
I'm here for Otter Bear. Make no mistake. If there's anything that is really important is that the unknown, the average Joe, the mysterious challenger comes up. And we kind of knew a little bit about the Jirachi going in, but the Otter Bear,
I'm seeing,
who is this person?
I'm seeing our Twitch chat, they're saying it's NA Obo 2.0.
That's right. That's right. Obo from set 3 Galaxies Championship.
We've rebuilt him. He's back. He's stronger. He's actually in the region.
Look at the names eliminated too, right? Bert's in there. No, you're Kyun and Spencer. Wow.
Yeah.
Every one of those players that got eliminated is a great player. And I mean, the thing is like in this tournament, every player that gets eliminated is a great player. Like that's just how it is. This is one of the last tournaments of the season, so we're going to see a lot of things like that. But yeah, I again, like I've said on the I said on the broadcast too, I'm excited to see how far some of these newer players can take it, right? Because there's a new opening for world champ because Casey Double is he's out. He dropped out of EU. So
no, DoA.
That's wide open. Right?
There's a spot open for second place to Otter Bear.
Oh, second place to Otter Bear. I mean, it's still NA, so I'm okay with that, right? This is the one sport that I'll cheer for NA in. I'll say that.
That's right. We got to win something.
Yeah, that's right. Something besides like I don't know, Call of Duty.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, so since you're out, we can ask you to make predictions. So I want you to make some wild predictions. Tell me, first of all, there's two things I want you to tell me. First one is give me your pick to win the tournament next week, and then give me 3 names that are going to drop out on day 3.
Okay. To win it is probably just Socks.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that one's a pretty no-brainer. Like, and then 3 people to drop out. It feels kind of BM, like but I guess if that's a question, I mean, like Otter Bear's,
No, not Otter Bear.
He's gonna maybe he's gonna win world.
You're just salty because
you're the last minute.
Maybe I'm just salty. Yeah, maybe I'm just salty. Who knows? But if I were to I don't know. I mean, I don't know, don't know him. And if I'm looking at the other players who've been challenger, I'm more confident that they can pull up consistent performances. It's hard for me to say, a player like Aegon's gonna gonna get eliminated over Otter.
Sure. So Otter Bear is one. Who are the other 2? Poor Otter Bear. What did he ever do to you?
He did nothing to me, I guess. I guess he's beat me as a Masters player, and that it hurt my ego too much. So I have to.
That's fair. All right.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. It's really hard to I'm just going through this list, and it's really hard to predict anybody's gonna go out. I think they're all good players, and it's it feels like BM, but if I have to pick somebody. And on that note, I'd probably Jirachi. He's pretty solid as well, but I don't know. It's honestly, it's not even that I think these players are bad. It's just if you go down this list, do I think Solus is gonna go out? No. Do I think Aegon's gonna go out? No. Do I think Goom is gonna go out? It's really hard to pick.
It's hard to pick.
Yeah. So Otter Bear, Jirachi, and then I don't know. I
I'm
think
loving this.
Keep in mind that pretty much all 16 of these players are in chat right now, ready
yeah.
to clip it, make an
Make it better.
NFT,
This is
sell it
great.
to some TFT
Yeah.
viewer,
Turn it into an
frame it
NFT,
on the
sell it
wall.
for like $30,000, you know? Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna say Goobums because I'm friends with Goobums, and I can write this off as banter, and so he's not gonna. It's not gonna be like I'm BMing Goobums, you know. Well, it is because I do that on a regular basis.
All
So
right,
I'm
all
gonna do
right,
it.
sure.
So yeah, if he's in chat, then
He's
that's
in chat.
it's
You heard
fine.
that.
It's fine.
Said WTF is what it was
Oh,
responsible for that one. In case you're
Sorry,
curious.
Goobums, but I had to pick somebody. Yeah.
All right. Well, before we let you make any more enemies, and it's my fault, so I take a little bit of responsibility for that too. Let's talk a little bit about tournament formats here. So overall, you know, obviously we're still testing things in TFT. There's a lot of tournament formats to be used, to be discarded, perhaps. What do you think about the NA finals format overall?
Like the regional finals.
Yeah, the one we're in right now, the one we're in
So
the middle of right now.
yeah, are we talking about like including the qualifiers, or just like the tournament, like 32 to 20, just this tournament?
I just meant this tournament, but if you
Okay.
want to expand that, feel free.
Yeah,
Good
I
with that.
mean, I personally think the format's pretty decent. I mean, I don't see a problem with it. Maybe it could be better, but I don't see like a blatant problem with it. I know like some of my friends are like don't really like this the way like that the seating works and stuff like that. But I personally like don't think it's that big of a deal. Because I think the way that it rewards consistent gameplay throughout the 4 days, which I think is really important.
Mhm.
Because like if you're doing like it's pretty nice that like I mean obviously this hurt me, but like one day's high roll of performance doesn't like do anything for you the next day. And it's also like, to be honest, if you're low rolling one day, it takes a lot of low roll for a good player to not qualify, or like low roll plus mistakes. So for me, I low roll like second day. If I were playing better, like I could have made it because it's like um yeah, it's like it does feel like it mitigates a lot of like the high roll, low roll, like the variation that can happen in tournaments in 6 games. And then like obviously the finals is like uh you have to make it to the top four, and then it's just like those points. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's gonna be like high rolling and low rolling is like if you low roll that day, low roll 3 games that day, you're maybe in a bad spot, can't make worlds. But that's how the game works, and I don't really see a way to like eliminate that aspect
Yeah.
of the game.
Hmm.
So I do
Mhm.
think like basically what I'm saying is like for every day except for the finals, maybe the second to last day as well, like you can if you whether or not you low roll or high roll, if you're a good player and you play consistent and like you keep your mental strong, you should be able to move on to the next day. Unless you like low roll a lot, which obviously again you can't do anything about. If you low roll a lot and like every game is just like top bottom two and you can't do anything about it, then that sucks. But that's part of the game.
Mhm.
You can't change
True,
that.
true.
Any
Mental is
thoughts to
so
add to that,
important.
Frodan?
Yeah, mental is really, really important. I was casting a game with Mort and on the first day of competition, and we happened to switch over to Goobum's point of view, and I see a giant slayer slammed on his sliver. And for people who aren't familiar with it, Giant Slayer is very useless early game. And it's also using 2 premium components that you really need for a ton of compositions. And it's like at best a late game tech against specific like health threshold. And what makes it even more ironic was like at the beginning of set 4, Goobums was like lecturing me constantly because he was a player that was like kind of helping me improve my gameplay as I was, trying to rank up. About like not to slam Giant Slayer and like do all this stuff and like make sure you check the connections and like all these different conditions. So of all the people to see slamming Giant Slayer, Goobums on day 1 of North American regionals, you've been preparing for 6 months for this tournament. You're gonna tell me on day 1 competition you're slamming Giant Slayer.
Hey,
And Mort Dog's like,
Bertasaurus
yeah,
marked him
that's
for
a
death,
mistake.
so you know.
Mort was like, yeah, that's a mistake. I don't know what he's doing, and we're just like kind of chuckling about it. It turns out he misclicked and he almost lost his mental right there. He was like, oh
Oh
fuck, it's an
no.
8th, blah, blah, blah. I hate this game. This game sucks. This whole like type of mentality. I heard that he kind of like almost imploded, but somehow he like pulled out, I think, like a 5th or like a top 4 from that position because
Bad.
Mort Dog was watching.
Wow. That story was a roller coaster of emotion, man. I'm looking forward to the Hallmark movie of the week with that one. But let's move on to our next topic, and this is one everyone's been looking forward to.
Yes, this
Time
one.
for Bertasaurus to make more friends, influence people, certainly not make any enemies. Let's hear your top 10 players in North America. Any order you want, throw them out there. Who do you got?
Yeah, so maybe I can order them later, but maybe I'll just go through what comes to mind. So Socks, GV8, New Bowel.
Wait, slow down. Our
yeah,
producer has to keep up here. Yeah,
Very
can't
good.
get
Very
too
One more
fast.
time. One more time.
yeah.
Try to rank them a little bit.
Yeah, I'll just talk about like why I'm picking them. So I think Mismatch X is probably just. I mean, if I were to rank him, he'd probably just be one. I think he's one of the players that is really consistent throughout tournaments. Obviously everybody has some bad tournament performances, but I think he's been very consistent. And also he's one of the players I've seen like play the most creatively. I'll always remember like this one game back in set 4 where the lobby everybody just happened to be playing like some AP comp, and Sox is just playing some random 6 Mystic board and he's going 9 and he wins the game off of it. Like I think that Sox is like so like obviously everybody praises Sox for his positioning and stuff, but I think he's like also like a really creative player and like knows how to read the lobby. So I think Sox is really good. And hopefully he wins worlds for us. But who knows? GV8 I also think has been like an extremely consistent player. If you just look at like ladder points, he's not only been like very consistent throughout tournaments. Obviously, like NA regionals is an anomaly. Like he got out first day, but that happens like just one really low roll day. I do think that like he's probably one of the best players. He was probably one of the best players going into the tournament. And he's also been like really consistently at the top of ladder. And he's just a good overall player. He knows like how to play like pretty much everything. And then Nubal is a player I've learned from a lot. Actually, and I think like he hadn't been performing that well in tournaments, but his ladder performance has been really good, and he's still in the regional tournament, so maybe he'll get some high roll games and then make it to worlds. So we'll see, but I do think he's like a really good player, and I would put him on this list. Like even if he was out of regionals already, I would put him on this list just because of in merit of ladder. Okay, so those ones are probably like top 3. I said no particular order, but these are probably like the best players. Maybe it's a little bit hard to say.
Okay.
The next ones are going to be like actually in no particular order because I would have to think about how to order them. But I mean, I would just like the very popular streamers come to mind. So Kyun, Soju, and then Solus. So those.
Solus is a popular streamer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I watch his stream a lot.
He's
been popping off lately
Yeah.
too. Actually,
Yeah.
he's almost done with his 1-year challenge, by the way, which is very.
That's super impressive.
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing that.
Ugh.
I would probably put them like lower on the list, but just like listing them out right now because they come to mind. So obviously Kyun, Soju, like they've been playing a really long time, pretty consistent throughout every set. They've all pretty much had rank 1 every set. And then also Solus has been popping off in tournaments as well. And then Soju, Kyun and Soju have, had pretty good days. I think they haven't been as consistent, and I think I do value consistency a lot, which is why I put like I think consistency is really important. But even if you're not consistent, doesn't mean that you're a bad player. I think they're all pretty solid players. So the other two more people I'm friends with, and I would probably put them above Kyun, Soju, and Solus is Spencer and Setsuko.
Okay.
So
I like it.
Spencer
Is it truth or nepotism? I'm not sure. Which
I
one.
mean, I actually maybe it's nepotism because like I talk to these guys and like see how they play the game, and I'm like impressed in certain ways. So like that can obviously be a bit of bias there. But I think Spencer, I mean, it's pretty like there's not really much to say. They're just really solid, really good players, top of ladder a lot. And yeah, like I think they're really good at playing the meta, stuff like that.
We have 2 more.
2 more.
2 more spots.
I guess I should put Robin on the list. I feel like Robin is kind of hit or miss. Like it depends on the meta, but like when it's I mean, I guess That's true for DQA as well. I think Robin is like a player. I don't know. I just remember like at the beginning of set 4.5 where he basically the Otherwood ASOL comp, he just destroyed ladder with that. And then in tournament as well, I think if there's a comp that he can play well, he'll be really consistent. I don't think like he's as flexible as like some of the other players, but I think he like knows comps really, really well. And so yeah, I think he's on the list. And then for the last one, I think I can put myself on the list. I don't know exactly where. Maybe around like sixth or
And
something.
I like. Right. I was. There's some candidates out there that you left off, and I was like, ooh, which of his buddies? He's gonna be humble. Which of his buddies gonna put on there? Just put yourself.
Everybody wants to be above Soju. So would you put yourself up there, or where would you put yourself on this list?
Yeah, sure. I'll put myself up. Actually, I can't put myself below Setsuko. I don't really care if I'm actually worse than Setsuko or not. But if I put myself below Setsuko, I mean, I'm gonna get memed down for a while. So I'll put myself below Spencer.
Wow. All right.
You guys are like the ninjas. You guys stick together in a group of 4. It's like right there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't really know why.
And only one of you qualify. You really are ninjas, like 1 or 4.
Yeah. But
ninja vanish, as they say.
Do you want to rearrange any of this?
I mean, I would move Solus up. I think I would move Solus probably. I mean, I think I've always been like, because the thing about Solus is that like I've watched him play the game and like somehow he's just always popping off, and like I don't really like for a lot of these players on the list, like I'm impressed with like specific things they do. With Solus, it's like not really the case, but somehow like he's popping off every tournament. Like he's top 2 in both are like doing really well in all these regional finals. So I'm gonna put him like, I'm gonna put him above Robin. I think that's a spot for him. But maybe he's better. Maybe I should put him above me as well. But I don't think he's worse than Setsuko. I don't think he's better. I think Setsuko is probably. I put Setsuko above him, and I don't want to put myself below Setsuko. So yeah.
I like it.
And then I don't know if I would keep Soju at 10th, but for the memes, I'll just let everybody be above Soju. So yeah. I think this is about right.
It's your list. You can build it however you want. No one can question that.
This is a banger tier list.
It's a great
10
list.
out of 10.
Maybe I'll put switch Kyun and Robin, but that's not really that big of a change. This is about it.
They're tied for 8th. Very on brand.
I feel like I should probably have put DQA on this list as well, but maybe we're Robin. I'm not entirely sure.
He's like 10.5, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. I see. Or 9.5. You can still put him above Soju too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Never mind. I don't want to get in trouble. I have nothing against Soju. I'm just trying to join in with the memes. All right.
Yeah.
Trying to be part of the group. All right. Let's leave the tier list at that before things get any worse, and let's go on to our mailbag. Actually, I have cursed image of the week first. So this one is quite cursed.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen this?
Yeah, my friend sent me that. I didn't actually like check I didn't actually read the patch notes that much, but my friend sent me that. I just thought it was kind of funny, but what I will say about like the 1141 is like honestly with the way I played the game, I should probably I think I played pretty consistently and I think I played decently, but I probably should have went like 4-4-4-4 or like 4-4-6-4-4-4 or something like that. Because I definitely high rolled a lot of those games. I think I had like the right idea in terms of what comps to play and stuff. And I know one game like I was in a really doomed spot, and then I made some plays that I feel like most people wouldn't have seen, and then I like actually put myself in a position where I actually could high roll into a first by hitting Samira 2. It was like a sharpshooter game. So I think I played well, but it probably isn't like it isn't a 1-1-1-1-4-1 type of performance. Like I don't think
it was a 1-1-1.
Yeah, it was
performance. It was,
but
it measurably was.
I don't think I was actually like gapping the rest of the competition by that much,
All right. Well, you're very humble, and I appreciate that. We don't get a lot of that on the show. So
your parents sent you that? You didn't see this?
No, my friends.
My friends.
Oh, your friends.
Yeah.
That'd be really harsh, man.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of weird.
Man.
Like, hey, remember this? Wow.
But it is
man.
it is really cool to be put in the patch notes though. So that's fun.
That is pretty sick. That's
Yeah.
you should take that and frame it and put it like behind you on the stream. So it's just always there. You know?
Yeah. Maybe
That's
just set
what I
it
would
as
do.
my background picture. Ego boost every time I alt tab.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a memorabilia. Exactly. We've got one more question. This question comes to us from Lucan.
Mhm.
Lucan? I don't know how to pronounce it. I give up. But it's
They
also our
participated
giveaway winner because it's a great question. Your play style of playing around 3-cost carry worked great in the 4th NA qualifiers, but not as much in the regional finals. Do you think it was due to the players, luck, meta shifts, or something else that caused the differences?
So I don't actually think that it didn't work well because the first day I did well, and then second day, so there's like slight meta shifts because it like for some reason the lobbies were lower tempo, and I guess like in the finals it works a lot better because the more flexible players are, the earlier they get their comps online, the more like outs like basically they don't like try to force a 4-cost carry, and then so then the people who do get punished a lot more. So it was like a lot of my lobbies ended up being a little bit slower tempo, so it wasn't as effective. But the main reason why I didn't make it is because first 3 games, I think I low rolled really hard. It was a combination of like tilt and low roll, so I went 8-8-7, right? And then after that, I think I actually should have went like 3-1-1 in my last 3 games. Like I could have won my 5th game for sure if I didn't miss position. Basically, like I was figuring out, I went fast 9 to go with like 1st or 8th. I actually hit a lot. I think my comp was strongest in the lobby because I high rolled Orn item as well and got like Eternal Winter. But I was thinking about what to play on my board, and then um, I wasn't positioning or scouting at all. Then I play against Sox, and he's perfectly positioned for me. And then I die with -2 HP into 5th when I feel like I could have won. But yeah, the main thing I think like the reason like what happened that day, the second day was low roll games, and then I tilted and didn't play optimally. And when you don't play optimally, it's like a bit off. I also think that like it does require a lot more like if you make mistakes while playing around 3-cost carries, you get punished a lot more. Because like if you miss an angle, like you have to play for a lot of outs. With when you're trying to play around 3-cost carries. And if you miss one of your outs, like that might just be like you've missed your opportunity to top 4 the game, or like you lose multiple placements because of it. Like you basically skip it. Like if you skip a chosen on your 3-2 roll down that you actually could have taken. So yeah, I don't think that the strategy was bad. I think I just executed poorly on the second day.
Okay, interesting. I love hearing that those explanations, like the mentality where pro players' heads were at. That's always so fascinating to me. So thanks for a great answer to a great question. Congrats again to our giveaway winner, Lucan. I don't know. I give up. But if you want to be a giveaway winner, that's right, you out there. Make sure to submit questions so we have them because it's great to have these questions for our pro players. But on that note, it is time to end the show. And so, as always, we need to go through and find out what everyone's final thoughts were. So, Bertasaurus, thanks for being an amazing guest. What are your final thoughts, your shout outs, last words for the show?
I think just first of all, thank you so much to everybody who's been supporting me throughout the tournament. Because like throughout the tournament, I've been getting a lot of support from people. Even like second day when I went 8-8-7, you know, somebody just gives me subs, even though I went 8-8-7. You know, just try to like cheer me up and get me back, get my mental back. So yeah, thank you to like everybody. A lot of the OGs who have been like with me on Twitch for a while. And then also like, I guess I'll give a quick shout out to Googums for also particularly supporting me because just like kind of balance out that I said he would go out.
Until you betrayed him.
Yeah, when I betrayed him,
marked him for death next
and
weekend.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so just thank you so much to and for all the support, and then also like my friends in particular who I know IRL have been with me like supporting my entire like TFD, and like they're the ones who got me to stream and everything. So thank you to them as well. Yeah,
that's super wholesome. We've had a ton of fun with you on the show. Frodan, how about you? Any final thoughts?
Yeah. Obviously tune into regionals, the conclusion for day number 3 and 4 this weekend. I'll be casting alongside, not with DoA. Actually, they started separating DoA and I realized we're
too powerful together. They had to separate us for the. I understand. Yeah.
And so it'll be really fun. And I believe I'm casting with like Wolfie and Bryce, Esports Law. So it should be fun. And then DoA's casting with Mort and Crowan, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And
It'll be
it's
fun.
gonna be lit. We're gonna see Otter Bear and 3 other players join us for the World Championships for Set 4 Fates. So please tune in.
All right, sweet. Guys, it's been a great episode. This has actually been one of my favorite episodes in a while. We've had a lot of good guests on, but I feel like we got some great conversation. We laughed, we cried. I cried internally anyway. I don't know if anyone else cried. We had a good time either way. I just want to have a big shout out, of course, to the squad here at Wisdom at GiantSlayer for putting this on behind the scenes. They always do such an awesome job, and we love working with them. Thanks to the fans out there for watching. Thanks to the players for giving us such great games to be excited about. And thanks to Riot for giving us a game to be excited about. So on that note, thanks for watching, everybody. Again, make sure you watch the NA finals this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, twitchtv.com/Riot Games. It's going to be amazing. And we will see you on the next Teamfight Talk show. Until then, take care, play some games, have a good time. Catch you later.